Okay, so when I say the word divination, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably something like tarot cards, right? Or maybe a crystal ball, someone telling you your future, and that's that. It's set in stone. Well, get ready, because we're about to dive into a system that completely flips that old idea on its head. For, well, forever, this has been the question. People have been trying to figure this out since the dawn of time. Stargazers, mystics, you name it. Everyone wants a sneak peek at what's around the corner. But here's a thought. What if we've been asking the wrong question all along? And that's exactly where chaos magic comes in. It doesn't just suggest we're asking the wrong question, it pretty much insists on it. This is a total shift away from just passively listening to a fortune. And this is the real game changer. Think about it. What if divination isn't like watching a movie of your future that you can't change? What if it's more like looking at a GPS map? It shows you where you're headed right now based on your current path, which means you still have the wheel. You can still choose to take a different exit. All right, so let's start with the foundation. In this system, divination is treated less like some mysterious, unknowable gift and way more like a practical piece of technology for your own mind. So yeah, you can just toss out that whole idea of a pre-written destiny. Instead, picture this. You're running a diagnostic check on your own internal computer, your subconscious mind. You're just looking for the programs and patterns that are running in the background. And the cool part, once you can actually see the code, well, that's when you can start to debug it, or even rewrite it completely. Okay, so this whole approach is built on a few key ideas. Let's run through them. First up, pragmatism over dogma. Basically, if it works, it works. Don't get hung up on tradition. Next, gnosis is essential. That's a special state of mind we're going to talk more about, but it's the engine for all of this. Then, the focus is psychological. It's all about accessing your own mind. And this one is huge. It's active, not passive. You're a participant, not an audience member. And finally, the toolkit is totally eclectic. You can borrow from anywhere and everywhere, whatever gets the job done. Okay, so how does this psychological technology actually, work? It runs on a two-part engine, belief and something called gnosis. Let's break those down. Now, this first part is pretty wild. In this system, belief isn't some lifelong commitment. It's a tool. Think of it like a light switch you can flip on and off. You temporarily believe in your tarot deck for the 20 minutes you're using it, because that belief becomes the operating system that lets you communicate with your subconscious. And when you're done, you just flip the switch back off. And gnosis is the key that gets the whole engine running. You can think of it like a really deep state of flow. You know when you're so focused on something that the rest of the world just kind of melts away? It's that moment when your inner narrator, that little voice that's always analyzing everything, finally goes quiet. And in that silence, that's when information from deep down can finally bubble up to the surface. And you can get there a few different ways. You can take the inhibitory path and quiet the mind through stuff like meditation. Or you can go to total opposite direction with the ecstatic path and overload your senses with intense dancing or emotion. Or you could even find this third state of no mind. It doesn't really matter which path you take. They all lead to the same place, bypassing that conscious filter. So let's say you're doing this. What's actually happening? Is it just psychology? Are you talking to spirits? Is it all about energy? Well, the really interesting thing about chaos magic is it doesn't make you choose. I mean, this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the answer this framework gives is just brilliantly pragmatic. The correct explanation is whichever one gets you the result you're looking for. Just take a look at this table. It shows you how flexible this all is. You could use the psychological model and just say, okay, I'm tapping into my subconscious. Or you could adopt a spirit model and work as if you're communicating with something external. You might even prefer an information model, viewing it as hacking the code of reality itself. But the real key here is that meta model at the bottom. It treats all of these as just different user interfaces. Your temporary belief is what makes any of them work. You can switch between them like apps on a phone. And it follows that if your underlying model is flexible, then the tools you use can be flexible too. The toolkit here is all about adaptability. It's not about finding the one true method, but about picking the right key for the specific lock you're trying to open. And that toolkit is vast. You've got the classics like tarot cards and runes. You've got scrying into a black mirror or using a pendulum. It could even be something like automatic writing, dream divination, or even lucid dreaming. Honestly, the list goes on and on. The point is, the specific technique isn't really what matters. They're all just different keys for the same lock. And this brings us to the whole point of the entire practice. Why go through all this trouble? It's not just about getting information. It's about using that information to act. Here's where it all clicks. On one side, you have divination for information. You're just diagnosing what's likely to happen if you keep going on your current path. But on the other, much more powerful side, you have divination for influence. The reading doesn't just show you the probable future. It reveals the underlying beliefs and patterns creating that future. And once you see that code, you've got your target. You can start to rewrite it. I mean, this quote just sums it up perfectly. One is the act of reading the code of reality, and the other is the act of changing it. First, you diagnose. Then, you act. So this whole thing reframes divination entirely, not as a passive peek into the future, but as an active tool for creating your own. The ultimate question stops being, what's going to happen to me? And it becomes, okay, so what am I going to do about it? Which leaves us with a final thought, really. If you could read your own code, what would you rewrite?